with demand expected to come back, the question remains, does this mean the economy is back on track?
Companies now, after experimenting with offshore in places like India, Philippines, and Poland, want to bring those jobs back.
We invest in the U.S. We're the biggest exporter in the country. In the cycle we're in right now, we're creating jobs.
From Radio America, it's Neil Asbury's Made in America, the show that explores American industry, large and small, and promotes American-made products everywhere. Put Neil Asbury's Made in America to work for you.
Great big welcome to you all today. This is Dr. Rich Rothman. We're Made in America. Neil, my partner Neil Asbury, co-host, is flying somewhere right now. So we're going to be doing this ourselves today, and we're delighted that you're here. We have a great show for you today. We have Alfredo Ortiz, who's the president of Job Creators Network, and then we're going to have Grover Norquist. So today's tax day, for sure. We're going to be talking about taxes. We're going to be talking about what they really mean to you. They're going to talk about, allegedly the Democrats are really watching, I put this in quotation marks, really watching out for those small businesses, those mid-sized businesses, the backbone of the United States, the job creators of the United States, something Alfredo knows more about than anyone else. And I'm not so sure that's really working out that way. So having said that, there's our segue. Alfredo Ortiz, President, Job Creators Network, welcome to Made in America.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rich. Always great to hear you.
Well, I'm glad you're here. I mean, we need some clarity, Alfredo. God, I've been dying to talk to you for the last few weeks because every time I see what's happening with the progressives, I don't know what to call them anymore, to be perfectly honest, Alfredo. What would you call them? Progressives, Democrats,
idiots?
Progressive Democrats, idiots, useful idiots? No, those are the people that they go after if you follow the Stalinists. But I'm not quite sure. But one thing I'm kind of seeing right now in living color, as I used to say on NBC, which I don't watch, is that, they're not really helping the small businesses. They're not really helping job creation in so many areas. Oh, my God, Alfredo, we could go in so many different directions on this. But as it relates to what they passed this week, what they did just the other day, what does that really mean? And then we'll backtrack and we'll get on some of the other stuff. What does that really mean for the small business and the job people out there?
Well, Dr. Rich, this entire administration has basically declared war on small businesses, and that's what we're here to really call out. And quite frankly, this latest move to raise taxes on small businesses is just another example of the Biden administration where we're saying it's about promises made and promises broken, because that's exactly what they're doing. If you recall, during the actual campaigning, he said that no small business would be hit with a tax increase. And I'm glad you're going to have Grover from the American Tax Reform on later, because actually some of his analysis points to the number being as high as 1.9 million small businesses that are going to get hit with a Biden tax increase, both from, raising the corporate rate, that's about 1 million small businesses there, and then raising that top marginal income tax rate to almost 40%. The estimates really is going to be about, almost 2 million small businesses. These are probably the largest job creators amongst the small businesses out there. And we know that small business is the backbone of our economy, and it's the backbone of our communities. And without these small businesses, we have no country.
Well, you're 100% correct. Neil's a job creator. He owns quite a few manufacturing companies throughout the United States. And I'm an entrepreneur, and I've had 10 different companies, all in publishing and media, by the way. Neil's in manufacturing, I'm in media. But I've employed anywhere from low end 9 to the high end 135. And I got to tell you, to see what's happening right now, everyone here's a misconception everybody has, and I know that you address this every now and then. Everyone thinks that just because you own a company, you're making a lot of money. You're paying your people. You're probably underpaying the people, because that's what the folks on the left always say. They pull out all this stuff from the 30s and Lenin. But the point of the matter is that, in reality, Alfredo, everybody gets paid. When I start up another company, everybody gets paid but me. I don't get paid. I put money in. I have my partners get in. I pay the IRS. I pay the rent. I do everything I'm supposed to do. If there's about $14 left, maybe Dr. Rich, forget the doctor. That was when my mother was around. I pay myself. But it's never that you're super flush with cash all the time. There's a payday for you, and certainly, without the pain, and the risk, you don't make a lot of money at some point. But on an ongoing basis, it ain't that way. It's just not that way. So getting back to this, here we have, a lot of folks involved with LLCs and S corps and so forth. And Trump and Biden saying, well, we're not going to come after you guys. Well, that's a lie.
Total lie. Absolute lie, Dr. Rich. I mean, we know exactly. I mean, first of all, again, like I said, those LLCs, the sole proprietorships, S corps, partnerships, those are the ones that, especially the higher end ones, where that marginal income tax rate is going to go almost 40%. And again, these are job creators. These are people. Look, I had two small businesses before I did this. One was consulting, one was the construction. And I have to tell you, you put everything on the line for this, Dr. Rich. I mean, you know this. Neil knows this. Mm-hmm. I mean, you bet everything, right? You bet literally the farm on a lot of times. You mortgage your house, you take cash advances out on your credit card, you borrow from friends and family, and you go all in, right? And just like you, I mean, for the first year or so, I didn't pay myself a dime, right? So I could pay my employees. And so you take all the risk. And now comes the Biden administration and Biden himself and basically says, oh, whoa, wait a minute. You have reached your level of success that you should expect. Anything above that, we want you to basically hand over, because this is the redistribution of wealth that the Democrats believe in, right? But so even though you took all that risk, right, now you're going to be capped overall because, by the way, he's coming after the capital gains tax, what we're also calling the success tax, because I guess the way it's called the step up. And I'm sure Grover will talk about that as well. Mm-hmm. So I won't get much into that. But, we're calling it the success tax. I mean, these small businesses that have grown to be successful small businesses, in some cases they're farms, in some cases they could be manufacturers. Many times, what happens is at death, right, these small businesses are now going to have this enormous tax bill come due to them. And in many cases, they have to sell a business. If you recall, Kristi Noem, the governor, this happened to her where their farm business basically got hit with these capital gains tax, and they almost had to, lose that farm just so they could pay the taxes. And so this is really ridiculous. I mean, this goes completely against the face of everything we believe in this country in terms of that free enterprise, the entrepreneurialism that we believe in that really has made this country so great. They're coming after that, and they're going to ruin and decimate that entire spirit of, you bet big, you're going to win big.
Well, that's exactly correct. I mean, one of the things you learn as an entrepreneur when you have these companies, and you listen, it takes a lot of courage for someone to say, you know what, I have a dream, I'm going to pursue that dream, I'm going to find the money, I'm going to invest the money. I hate to sound like the mamas and papas in the song they did back in the 60s where they lived on their American Express card. But I lived on my American Express card years ago. You learn how, in all honesty, you learn how far you can go pushing American Express until you've got to make that payment. And these are the days before they even had the ability to do it on the Internet. So you can do it at, 11:59 at night. You're not late. You can do that.
Well,
but,
or Dr. Rich, I'm sure you probably remember this too. How many times were you begging to have a new credit card offer in the mail so that you could transfer from one balance to another back and forth between credit cards, right?
Sure, no, we all did that. In I'm not saying we have to do that anymore, but man, I went through that scene. But the question is, Alfredo, and this goes back to job creation and what we think about the people who do that. It's not an easy task to do this. It isn't easy.
Right.
And we take it very seriously because you've got to have the dream. It's a motivation. And what motivates you? The motivation may be in a number of areas. One, you really like what you're doing. You believe in the product. You believe in whatever you want to do. In my case, it was magazines that I owned, and that was my career going back, 3 decades. And we've had 12 of them now. But so that's one of the things. You love doing what you're doing. You can't wait to get up the next day because you're so into what you're doing. You're so tracked. You're so focused. You want to do that. Okay. The other thing is, as you're looking at your checking account and it says, CKPMG, and there's no number there, then,
right.
But you're going to have a payout someday. I don't mind handling the pain. My partner and I have been together for 37 years. We don't mind handling the pain. We've done it, all these different times over our lives. But at one day, at some point, I'm going to walk around a big table at a law firm, and I'm going to sign those docs, which you may have been through. I'm sure you have in your life. It's a great day. You come home at night, and you're numb from the fact that you actually pulled off what you did. It's not easy. It is not easy.
Right.
So, having said that, what happens if someone says, oh, by the way, more than 40% is going to be a capital gains, and you ain't going to keep that money? You're going to have to give a lot of this to some cats up in Washington, D.C. And then what does it do? What happens to all that motivation?
Right. Well, and it all goes away. And Dr. Rich, you're absolutely right. That's the thing. All that motivation, it completely gets thrown out. And people go, why would I ever want to take this kind of risk? Why would I put everything on the line if there's basically going to be taken away from me and, quite frankly, my kids when I pass? Right? I mean, why would they want to do this? And I mean, Biden doubling? I mean, he wants to double the capital gains tax from where it is today. It's just going to punish small business and their investments.
Well, that's called centralized planning, and if I remember, it didn't work too well for Stalin. Listen, we're going to come right back. We're up against the break right now. We're with Alfredo Ortiz he's the president of the Job Creators Network. Don't you go anywhere, because you're going to learn all about de Blasio when we come back.
Made in America.
Welcome back to Made in America. This is Dr. Rich Rothman. I'm on the phone right now with our good friend Alfredo Ortiz up in New York. President, I think he's in New York today. President Job Creators Network. We've had Alfredo. We love him. He's great. He's looking out for he's looking out for your job. I mean, he's the guy that put the signs up in Times Square that made national news and took on the bureaucracy of what was happening in New York. Alfredo, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. We also took on Major League Baseball because that was ridiculous as well. I'm actually in Atlanta today after the announcement of Herschel Walker announcing that he's running for U.S. Senate in Georgia.
Well, I want to talk about that in a minute. So the first thing I want to do is let's talk about New York. I'm a New Yorker. I grew up in New York City between 3rd Avenue and Irving in a place called Gramercy Park. Most people don't know it who are listening in the Midwest, but it's in New York. Let's just say it's Manhattan. So I grew up, and I had a whole bunch of different mayors. And New York was wonderful when I was a kid. And I grew up in the 50s, so it was wonderful. My mother could I went on the subway with my friends when we were like 10 years old. On rainy days, we went in the subway and we take a trip up to the museum. We go, we look at Tyrannosaurus Rex, get scared, look at it, and then we go buy some rocks that we're never going to keep, throughout our whole life. And then we get back on the subway and go home. Everything was fine. Never had a problem. All of a sudden in the 60s, in 62 specifically, Kitty Genovese, if you remember, I don't know, well, you may not have been around then, but Kitty Genovese got killed, 33 people watched her getting stabbed 3 different times. The bad guy came back, and that point was the start of the decline of New York City, and we became out of control. We wound up with some pretty bad mayors until we had, the hero Mayor Giuliani, the nation's mayor comes in, cleans up the city. It seems like we're back when things were at its worst, except this is worse. And we have a president that is so disconnected from the street. And I'm a street kid. My friend, we all played on the street. We did what we had to do. I went to public schools. I didn't go to private school, except when I went to college. And it just is, it's an astounding thing to see. It's a great city. It's a wonderful city. But right now, it needs a shot of something. It needs help. It needs a vaccine against de Blasio, Alfred, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah,
he's talking vaccines, man. So, hey, listen,
no, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's totally. All right, listen, Peter, I want to play the soundbite of de Blasio, and then I want to get Alfredo's response to that because he's up there. He knows what's going on.
The whole ball game is vaccination, and once you make that kind of profound strategic decision, you throw everything you got at it. We are not interested in half measures. We're interested in vaccination.
Whether it's indoor dining, fitness, or entertainment, just about anything indoors, starting tomorrow, proof of vaccination will be required in New York City.
Okay. The first part was de Blasio. The second part was the news guy on News 4 in New York City. But the point is, he's doing this. It's happening right now, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And, small businesses are just absolutely furious over this, right? Because they're now becoming the vaccine police. Restaurants are saying this is ridiculous. And by the way, remember this, Dr. Rich, these businesses will also be held liable if for some reason somebody uses a fake vaccination card to get into their restaurant, I guess, and they didn't catch it. Oh my gosh! So now they need to be experts in forgeries of vaccination cards as well?
Well, maybe they have to get insurance for that, Alfredo. Maybe they have to get insurance for that. I mean, why should they be liable? By the way, you did see that they caught somebody up in New York, I thought, with 3,000 phony CDC cards, and guess where they came from? China. Unbelievable.
Yeah, well, unbelievable. They're getting $300 to $500 a card.
But the problem is that an hour later you want to get another card. So, having said that, I want to get back to this. So, what really let's take it down from the owner, from the mayor to the store or the shop or the workout place, the theater. I mean, it looks like you can't go anywhere without having this passage, this rite of passage, right? You're stuck.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, yeah, right now, that's right, Doctor. I mean, they pretty much in New York, I believe up in Seattle, stuff like that. I mean, people, San Francisco, I understand as well. I got a couple of friends out there. They're basically saying you can't go anywhere without this vaccination card now. And look, it's just a matter of time. Mark my words right now. It'll just be a matter of time before you'll need them to fly airplanes, trains, and anything else that's public transportation.
Yeah, well, I think it's a very slippery slope, and it's the unintended consequences, something that Neil and I talk about a lot over the last million years that we've been doing this. But it's the unintended consequences of what can happen. You never intended it to go that way, but it does go that way. So that's what worries me, and that's why I'm against it personally. I don't embrace that. So that affects everyone, because if you can't get enough people going into the restaurants or the shops or the stores or whatever, then you don't have enough people. So in a little bit that's out there, tell us, I know you're embracing Herschel, and you want to get that in. I'm going to give you the final word on that. So what's the story? Give me the 30-second story on Herschel Walker.
Look, I mean, bottom line, he's going to be right for Georgia. If you look at his entire history of his entire life, I mean, he's a fighter. That's what we need in the Senate. We don't need someone like Warnock who basically is going to roll over and do everything that Biden wants him to do. We need somebody with Herschel's integrity and Herschel's gumption, really, to be able to be up there and fight all these idiots that, frankly, are passing laws left and right that are hurting our country and are hurting our small businesses.
And he's a guy that can do it. I mean, he's a very focused man. He's a great guy. He's a terrific guy. And I'm so pleased that y'all are getting behind him. And let's get him into office. We need him. Certainly the state needs him, for God's sakes. I mean, my God, what happened to Major League Baseball is just awful. Well, listen, Alfredo, we're out of time. I'm delighted you're on the show. We look forward to getting you back as soon as we can. That'd be wonderful. And you keep up the fight. You're the man. You're the hero up there. You got the white hat on. Go for it.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Rich. You too. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care of yourself. All right. We're gonna be right back with our next guest, Grover Norquist. We're talking taxes. Oh, my God. You got to know this. We'll be right there.
Made in America.
Sharply higher at the open, stocks continued to perform well over the course of the day Tuesday.
And I think that bodes well here over the next couple of years for having bigger demands coming to this country.
Now, more of Neil Asbury's Made in America.
Great big welcome to you. Welcome back to Made in America. As I said, this is Dr. Rich. I'm delighted to be here today. Neil is at about 35,000 feet. He's on his way someplace today. He can't be here, but we have a wonderful show. Grover Norquist, the president founder of Americans for Tax Reform. When you think tax, you've got to think Grover. He's out there. I'm telling you, he's the guy he's doing the fight for you. He's got the fight. He knows what to do. And I got to tell you, we're in a very, very strange place right now. This has been a very strange week in many, many ways. And we can talk about what's going on in Afghanistan later. But I think it's very important to understand that there's a major fight happening here. And I think people have to understand the nuances of what this fight is all about and what it means at a Main Street level, which affects, all the folks that are out there listening to this throughout the United States. And Grover, I'm delighted to welcome you to the Made in America.
Good to be with you.
Thanks an awful lot. So it just seems like, Nancy Pelosi pulled another Nancy Pelosi this week. Did you get that feeling?
Well, she got all of her Democrats to agree with her to move forward. And the Democrats are just determined to spend $3.5 trillion. If it all lasts 10 years long, it's $5.5 trillion. So that's a lot of money over the next 10 years, in addition to everything else, in addition to everything else. This is not anything you're used to paying for. This is all new, additional stuff. And to get it to go into your pocket many ways, many times, they want to double the capital gains tax. They want the American capital gains tax to be twice as high as communist China's. How do you think investors around the world will react to the idea that if you invest in China, they take 20%. If you invest in the United States, capital gains, they take over 40%. Not a good idea. Then he wants to take the corporate income tax back up high. We used to have the highest corporate income tax in the world under Obama. We were at 35%. China was at 25%. Europe was under 25% on average. And we wondered why companies moved away from the United States, where they were paying 35 versus 25 or 20. Biden wants to go back to take that rate up to at least 28% and then add the 6% of state and local taxes. That's significantly higher than China, significantly higher than Europe. Again, how many jobs will not be created in the United States? How many companies will move out of the United States or be bought because of this? And then in addition, there's something that's little well known but very important. It's called step up in basis. This was put in 100 years ago. Why? Because the capital gains tax was put on farms when mom and dad died. And they would take a capital gains tax on everything that mom and dad's, the value of that farm had increased over inflation. Decades and decades of inflation were taxed, and capital gains taxes were high. And so they said, you know what, when mom and dad die and you inherit the farm or a small business, but most 100 years ago it was mostly farms. Now it's mostly small business. It was
an agrarian society. Get that.
Yeah, we're not going to tear your small business, your farm, your ranch in shreds when mom and dad die. You inherit it, and the basis for when you pay capital gains starts at what it's worth now. So now when you work hard and you make it worth more, if you sell it, you pay capital gains taxes. But not just because you die, because among other things, who knows what a farm or a business is worth when you die? You know, there's not a market for these sorts of things. And you don't have the money to pay the tax because you haven't sold the place. They don't want to force people to sell the small business, to pay the death tax, to sell the farm, to pay the, and this is the capital gains death tax, not the other death tax that comes when you inherit money. So Biden wants to go back to where we were more than 100 years ago, and he wants a 40% plus, 43.4% capital gains tax. And by the way, the kind of inflation he's running up means that that's 43% on the inflated value of what you create in life, not the real value, the inflated value. So it's a much higher hit on what the real value is. So this is a huge, this is going to shred millions of small businesses. His tax on corporations is going to hit 2 million small businesses. And his increases on individual taxes will hit half of all the pass-through income. These are people who pay their income taxes. They have a small business, a nail salon, a barber shop, and sometimes they get bigger, right? But you pay it through your personal income tax. And those are being raised on quote-unquote quarters of what are taxed as actually small businesses.
You know, Grover, I want to bring it back down to the average person, and I'm going to set it up a little bit. I went to school at Syracuse for college. I was there for 7 years. And I lived out in farm country in Camillus, New York, which is west of Syracuse. All my neighbors were farmers. They were all farmers. And I have to tell you, they were the hardest working, most wonderful people I ever met in my life. And to this day, I have to tell you, I miss them. But I did realize how hard it was for them. And you know what else I realized? They had no money. They had a lot of land because they inherited the land along the way. So maybe they have 500 acres in upstate New York, and they're doing corn and other things that are out there. I mean, the one time I stole corn from my neighbor, it was cow corn. I mean, that's what a New Yorker does. You know what I mean? But the point of the matter is that they didn't have money, and there's a misconception in the government that just because you have this farm, you must have money. I mean, look at the asset that you have. And the truth of the matter is The very people that the Biden administration and the Democrats say they want to help are the exact people in focus with a target on their back that they're not helping. They're going to put them out of business. They're going to put them into bankruptcy. And you know what? Who picks up those farms? If you think about that, you have to answer the second one. Who picks up those farms if the small farm, the family farm, as we called it, disappears? I don't think that's a really good thing for America. Do you?
It's not. It's a disaster, which is why 100 years ago they fixed it. He wants to unfix it, to take away that protection. Again, this time it's not just farmers, it's also small businessmen. Average farm in Iowa, 360 acres, would pay $600,000 in taxes when mom and dad die.
It's just impossible. All right, we're up against the break. Grover, can you hang for a couple of minutes?
I can.
Oh, great. All right, we're going to be right back with Made in America, and we've got some incredible conversation coming from Grover Norquist. Don't go anywhere.
Made in America.
Welcome back to Made in America. This is Dr. Rich Rothman. I'm on the phone right now with Grover Norquist, who's the founder of Americans. Hi, this is Dr. Rich Rothman, here with Grover Norquist, for Tax Reform founder on Made in America. And we're delighted to have you here today. We're talking about taxes, and we're really talking about what happens to the average American, and with the ability to inherit things, to have things, to pay assets for them. And I want to know if we can have a conversation. You know, Art Laffer, every now and then, who's been on the show a few times, and certainly was part of Trump's team when he was putting together in 2016 his campaign, along with Steve Moore and Kudlow, which was just spectacular. And if we're trying to understand what they're doing to us with these taxes, you know, how do we explain to people that we're trying to help you, but we're really not trying to help you? Because they're not trying to help you. All this money that we're talking about, for example, $80 billion in new IRS funding to hire 87,000 new agents. Grover, where do you think that's going to go? Who are they going to go after?
Well, we know where it's going to go. Biden says it's going after rich people and corporations, but the IRS publicly said months ago they are going to increase by 50% their audits of small businesses. They believe that all the money they can get is from cash businesses. These are nail salons, barber shops, small grocery stores. That's where they think they're going to get the money. They want the access to everybody's Venmo accounts. So if you move a couple $100 here or there, PayPal or Venmo, they want all that stuff stored in the IRS, and they promise not to leak it, unlike the other stuff they've been leaking for the last several years. So their target is small businesses. There isn't a major corporation in America that's cheating on taxes. They go out of business if that happened. That's not where any money is to be found. The money is, they believe, the money is to be found in millions that they think haven't paid enough, and so that's what the 87,000 people are going to go bother.
Well, that's exactly right. But what bothers me in this, the misconception is, what people don't understand is that when you're spending all this money, and we're talking the big T right now, I mean, there's trillions of dollars. Before, it was billions that we were so concerned with. The unintended consequence of all this money plowing into the economy, and you were discussing it earlier, it heats up inflation. But in the long run, it destroys jobs because people can't afford what's happening. They can't afford product. I mean, there is this trickle-down effect in the economy. When you're spending all this money, what does it mean to the average person, Grover?
Well, on taxation is when they promise they're only going to tax rich people, and so they put a tax on higher-income people, and then that tax trickles down to the rest of us. When they put the income tax in, you paid 7% back in 1914. You paid 7% if you made more than, in today's dollars, $11 million. Today, the opening bid is 15%. So they always promise the new tax is only going to be on rich people. Pretty soon it's on everyone, and inflation speeds that up.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, look, let's think for a second. A lot of the small corporations in the United States, a lot of folks have LLCs, they have pass-throughs. Yep. Corporations don't pay taxes. Individuals pay taxes. So what really happens, I mean, here's a tax. How about energy? If energy goes up, which it has, and it's continuing to go up, and after this week it's going to go up significantly, of course, let me think. What did he do? Oh, that's right. We used to be independent just 7 months ago. Now we're not. Now we're dependent on the Mideast. So what happens in the Mideast affects us over here. All that ability to raise the product line affects everybody. That's an agnostic tax on everyone, isn't it?
It is. And if you say we're going to shut down the pipeline from Canada, that raises the price of energy, not this week, next week, but now and for the rest of time. For dozens and dozens of years into the future, energy will cost more in America because he dismantled the pipeline. Remember the Russian hackers disrupted pipelines and prices went up? Well, the president destroyed one.
It's just absolutely amazing. And then there's one other thing before we run out of time. And I thought this was a dead issue a number of years ago. But with Obamacare, there was going to be a tax on research and development for products that would help, such as prototypes for helping someone with losing a limb or something like that, or a new heart valve that's going to get developed, or a new product or a drug that's going to get developed. Now it appears that we're going to be going after taxes and price controls on American medical innovation. That has to have an unintended effect, that we're not going to have all the innovation that we had before, because it's going to get very expensive to do it here. At the same time, when these corporations spend billions of dollars to get new products online, now they're going to be charged all this corporate, individual tax that's going to get passed through. It just looks like a total disaster along the way. Bad health care, bad products, a lack of R&D in this country, and an erosion of the supreme health care that we've always had in this country.
We have always had the cutting edge health care. We get new cancer cures before Europe does, sometimes by decades, because they allocate and ration care based on whether they think your life is important. The only way to keep prices down on health care is either competition, which the Democrats don't want or believe in, or rationing, where people make political decisions about who gets what health care.
Just fine. It just seems that what is left is right, and what is right is left. So let me ask you, so where do we go from here? What does the average person do? We're watching this happening. This happened in the House. What's going to happen when this hits to the Senate?
It's going to be, they're going to come up together, and they have to write the bill, actually. Right now they have ideas. They haven't told you what's in it completely. It's going to spend a lot of money, a lot of taxes, but something awful will pass.
And then we're going to have to pass it to find out what's in it, because that's the Pelosi special.
Yes. They'll spring you on this. You will not know what's in it before it passes.
It'll be 40,000 pages long, and God help the person that has to read that. Well, Grover Norquist, thank you so much for being on Made in America. Delighted to have you here. Utmost respect for the work you do, and keep the fight.
Thank you very much. Good to be with you.
Great. Listen, everyone, stay there. We're going to be right back with some final comments and a couple of really good sound bites you're going to want to hear. So hang in there.
Made in America.
Welcome back to Made in America. This is Dr. Rich Rothman. Delighted to have you here today, and been a great show. I mean, I've really enjoyed Alfredo Ortiz up in New York fighting the battle for the jobs and job creation. He is just out there every day fighting for us. Now getting involved with Herschel Walker in Georgia. I'm very excited to hear that. And I think you will be too, because we really want to get Georgia in line so we can do the right thing to make America safe again, as somebody I know once said. And then we had Grover Norquist on the show. And today was tax day. We were talking taxes. And we're talking about really what it is the Biden agenda and what he plans to do. And we're watching it unfold in the country right now, and I got to tell you, it's pretty terrifying. But let me play a quick bite for you that Biden said, and I want to discuss it about America competition. So take a listen to this, and we'll talk about it.
So we can invest in making our country stronger and more competitive, create jobs and raise wages, and lift up the standard of living for everyone. The bottom line is, in my view, we're a step closer to truly investing in the American people, positioning our economy for long-term growth, and building an America that outcompetes the rest of the world.
Well, that's a heck of a statement. I would think that he just made. I mean, when you think about it, he wants to spend $3.5 trillion, and as a result of that, we're going to have tax increases on working families and small businesses. He's going to raise the corporate tax rate. He's going to raise the individual tax rate. He's changing the energy policies of the United States, which means anything that we're going to create right now and anything we're going to ship is going to cost a heck of a lot more money. And as that goes along, and you all know that, you people going shopping, we're all going shopping. I go in the store on the weekend, and I'm stunned that a family with 2 or 3 kids can make it right now because the prices have gone up so much. We just did that with Grover. That's an agnostic tax. It's not a tax, but it's a tax because your dollar is worth less. So even though you may increase your income, the cost of living goes up, and guess what? That difference is called failure, because you don't have the ability to maintain the standard of living that you want. So how do we become competitive in the world if we're charging you for innovation, as we discussed earlier, we're charging you for R&D, we're charging higher corporate taxes, some of the corporations going to have to let people go, or better yet, to do the R&D, to stay competitive with the rest of the world, they're going to not raise wages, not give benefits. They're going to cut any way they can because the survival of the corporation subsedes dramatically the ability of the individual to make more money, because that's just the way it is, good, bad, or indifferent. The corporation employs lots of people. They want to keep that. They have their products. They want to go on. There's a legacy that's going to happen. So I don't understand how we're going to go ahead and be competitive. So that's one area that I find to be a complete lie from the Biden administration. But there's another thing that's out there right now, and this is the central planning, where the Biden administration is saying, look, we understand what the rules of law are, but we're going to have to switch this. So let me play a really quick hit right now.
Some elected officials are celebrating this new eviction moratorium.
This is a case where it was a crisis that was unfolding and that was unnecessary. We're not going to tell people to get out and couch surf and double up with relatives. It's the wrong thing to do. I think what we saw happen is power to the people.
It's like Groundhog Day all over again. This is the 7th time this moratorium has been extended, and it's causing real damage to the industry. And if you look at who owns rental housing, if you just look at 1 to 4 unit properties, this is the true independent rental owner. That's 53% of the nation's housing stock. And we are looking at information that's coming out of different industry groups that are researching this. And 23% of independent rental owners that own single family homes have been forced to sell one or all of their rental units. So we could come out of this with a much smaller industry, but with still the demand ever growing, which is ultimately going to increase the cost of rental housing.
That is an amazing, amazing, amazing statement. They're talking about the moratorium that the president, that, by the way, was Bob Pinniger. He's the CEO of National Apartment Association. And he's talking about the moratorium that the president illegally allowed to continue and extend, even though the Supreme Court said no. So getting back, the bottom line is we have taxes coming. We have a runaway Congress on the Democratic side. We have a president that says, I'm looking out for you, but he certainly doesn't have our back, but we certainly see his back when he leaves the room. I want you to remember that. I want you to think about that. And I want you to pray for the people in Afghanistan right now. This is Dr. Rich Rothman. Delighted to be with you today on Made in America, where every week Neil and I are fighting for your jobs. We'll see you right here for another adventure. We'll see you next week.